Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In this episode, we are pulling out an old interview from the archive that I never released just because the audio quality and my performance was pretty bad, so I kind of have a pet peeve about that. But I've learned not to care what people think, and it's not fair to the guest because they did a lot of work to tell their story. I wasn't sure at the time if I wanted to make Sasquatch Theory solely focused on Sasquatch or if I wanted to include the paranormal and alien phenomenon. I don't think we can say for sure that Bigfoot is tied into aliens and the paranormal, but we also can't say that it is not, because there is a lot of strangeness that goes along with the cryptid phenomenon. Alright, I want to thank Al for being such a great guest and speaker on this part 2 interview. If you guys enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, please like and subscribe for more future videos. Alright everyone, let's dive straight into Al's paranormal and cryptid encounters.
So how you doing, Miguel? Thank you for having me back on. It's my pleasure to be here. So tonight I'm going to discuss the 2015 Nuclear Lake experience. In 2015, myself and my cameraman, I come across some research that talked about this lake that I had been going to for years, like hiking with my dog and my kid and stuff like that. Never knew the history of it. And the backstory was they were mining uranium at this lake at one time in the mountains, and they had a facility on the water, and the facility blew up and all the stuff poured into the lake, and hence the name Nuclear Lake. The government cleaned it up. But as I'm reading about this stuff, the Appalachian Trail runs right through it. And one day, my neighbor's a local guy, and he had a couple of his friends over, and we were all standing around the driveway just shooting the breeze, and they were talking about an experience that happened to them at off the Appalachian Trail at Nuclear Lake. And I know, you're not really supposed to be at the lake at night, but you can be on the Appalachian Trail 24/7, 365 days a year. And these two guys go on to tell a story about, they were coon hunting one night on the Appalachian Trail. And of course, the trail comes out into the lake, and they had their dogs with them. They had like the red bone hounds and stuff, and they're out there, and they're walking along the mining road. And all of a sudden, rocks start getting thrown at these guys, and they just thought it was a couple of high school kids hanging out at the lake partying or something, So they're saying, hey, knock it off, or we're going to stick the dogs on you. And I'm eavesdropping, listening to the story. And the guy says, well, the rocks kept coming, they were small rocks the size of like golf balls and stuff. So they sicked the dogs on them. And they told the dogs to go get the kids, right? They could let the kids just take off running or climb a tree or something. And the dogs ran about halfway there and stopped. Then they turned and tucked tail, and they ran back towards the two hunters. But they ran right past the hunters. They ran all the way back to the parking lot where these guys' pickup truck was, and they run underneath the pickup truck, and they were hiding. They were scared to death. So these guys were like, "What the hell? It's just scared our dog." So they're saying, "Hey, you better come out." You know what I mean? And more rocks are coming thrown at them. And so they say, "Okay, if you don't come out, we're gonna put a round in the tree." So, they're hunting with 22s, right? Because they're just coon hunting. So they put a 22 round in the tree. When they did that, it said like a 7-foot Sasquatch stepped out from behind the tree and just roared at them. And at that point, they left. They went back to their truck. They got their dogs, and they came home. And, so now I hear this story from my neighbor's friends. I start looking it up, and I start finding that, there's a lot of campers who camp out either off the Appalachian Trail in the vicinity of the lake, or off the trail at the lake. And again, they're not supposed to be there, but who's gonna, there's a guardhouse and everything, but the guard's last run is like 11 o'clock. So after 11 o'clock, you got the run of the lake. And there was a couple of people who were camping off the trail, and they had something come up to their tent and knock their tent around and feel their tent. And then there was another two couples that were sitting at the lake, and they were on the side of the lake, and one of the guys had a pit bull with him. And again, something they heard something walk around the tents. Knock. The dog was petrified, ran into the sleeping bag and just hid and cried. The guy peeks out and he sees a 7-foot Sasquatch walking away. So now this catches my attention. I was like, okay, we got to go there at night. I talked to my cameraman and I said, listen, we got to go there, and we got to check this place out. So as we're getting there, we get to the we hike in about a mile. We get to the south end of the lake, and there's like a big giant rock, and we sit down on the rock, have some water, and we're there 5 minutes. I mean, literally 5 minutes, and we have rocks thrown at us from both sides of the woods. And my cameraman is like, what does that mean? And that means, and I'm telling him, I think those are the Sasquatch, and they want us to leave. Maybe one of them wants to cross over the road, and we're in their way, because we're right on the road, and either they want to go from east to west or west to east. So we move on. We get deeper into the woods, and now we're off the Appalachian Trail, and we're on a goat trail that kind of goes around the lake, and we're finding these weird little cairns up in the mountains, like up on the hills, and freaked me out. Thought it was like Blair Witch kind of thing, these little rock figurines, and they're on the edges of like the cliffs. Like you have to be like a billy goat to get up there, and who's going to climb up the side of a cliff to build these little cairns? So we're thinking, man, this is really weird. And we're hiking around the lake, and then we find what looks like 3 quartz crystal stones set up in the shape of a pyramid. So we're like, okay, you know what? When we come back Saturday night, because that was like on a Monday or Tuesday, when we come back Saturday night, this is where we're going to start this is our first location. Then we'll work our way out to the meadow, and then from the meadow, we'll work our way out to the campsite at the very end. And then we'll head back out to the car. So we say, okay, we wrap it up, we go home. So that Saturday night, we head out, me, my cameraman, Bill, and my partner, Brian. Brian is the tech guy. He's the tech guru. And we go up there, and it's Halloween. It happens to be Halloween. There's a full moon that night, and I believe there was a meteor shower going on as well. So we hike in during the day. We go, and we get to all the locations. We get to the first location, which is a campsite by the lake, and we call the team psychic, and she says, okay, at this location, you're going to see this, that, and the other thing. Okay, no big deal. Then we get to the meadow, and we call her, and she says, okay, at this location, you're going to see this, that. Then we get to the third location, and we call her, and she's like, wow, this location is really weird. You're going to have to be careful here. She goes, this is, you're going to have all kinds of experiences at this location, and, be very careful. It's okay. So we start. I got a parabolic mic going, and I'm getting what sounds like a Morse code coming out of the trees. Now, I don't know if it was something above the trees, above the clouds, sending down a Morse code. And, we got this all on video. You could probably go to the Bronxville Paranormal Society and watch all these videos. And we're debating it, and Brian's thinking, well, you know what? When the nuclear accident happened, these trees were probably small. They're probably contaminated. It's probably nuclear energy coming out of the top of the trees now, because they were small then. They're big now. And, everybody's got their own theories about it. So filming these 3 quartz crystal stones set up in a triangle with my thermal imager. And I can't even see it on a thermal. I mean, it's giving off no energy. So Bill hits it with like a little laser. Brian had a green laser. I had a red laser. Bill hits it with the res laser. So now I can see what I'm supposed to be filming. And there's nothing. Brian bought quartz crystal stone skull, and I brought a rose quartz crystal stone, because the clear quartz crystal is supposed to be a transmitter, and the rose quartz is supposed to be a receiver. So we got them on the 2 different stones to see if we can catch any energy jumping from one to the other, And so we're filming, and we're not really getting much of anything. So Brian says, well, let's ramp up the energy a little bit. So we break out a Tibetan singing bowl and we fill the woods with frequency and vibration, and the whole atmosphere changes. I mean, it's just, you can feel like the energy go through you. I mean, it's like your fingers are tingling, your tongue has got a metallic taste in it. So now I'm filming the quartz crystal stones, and they're white hot. And we're filming that, and we're still getting the Morse code out of the sky, and it's coming down even more out of with the parabolic mic. So we call our psychic back up, and we say, hey, we hit it with and now she's trying to talk to us, and she can't even talk to us. It's like she's got cerebral palsy, and she's trying to say, move away from the area, move away from the area. So we walk like 100 yards away from the area, and now she could start to talk, and she tells us, what the hell did you guys do? What did you do? And we say, well, we just ramped up the energy a little bit. We hit it with a Tibetan singing bowl with some frequency and vibration. And she goes, you've opened up a portal. She's like, you guys have, the energy is just off the roof now. She goes, I can't even talk to you guys when you're next to those stones. So then she starts telling us what she thinks is going to happen at this point in time. It's like, okay. We hang up with her, and there's a little stone wall that runs in the woods, like I don't know, they call it settler boundary markers, but I don't think they are, because they run parallel to each other. They run in all different directions. But anyway, there's a 3-foot, 4-foot stone wall behind us, and on the other side of that wall is a ridge, and we're looking around the ridge, and down below the ridge is a swamp, and we're filming, and we're doing all kinds of stuff with EMF and meters, and we got a thermal imager going, we got a full spectrum going, we got an infrared going, we got a regular low light camera going, we got all kinds of stuff going on. And I break out the dowsing rods, and the dowsing rods are spinning like helicopters. Where before I did it with the dowsing rods, before I hit it with the Tibetan singing bowl, the dowsing rods didn't move at all. So anyway, they're spinning like helicopters. So now we're hunkered down, and we'll say, okay, it's getting. We do a day-night investigation. I like to do a day-night investigation whenever I go out. I like to see what's there during the day. I like to see what happens at night. So now it gets dark, and we're sitting there, and again we're filming, and again we decide to hit it again with the Tibetan singing bowl, and we ramp it up again, and then all of a sudden we hear what sounds like bipedal footsteps coming towards us from the west. At this point, there's a full moon out, and the coyotes are going off on the mountain to the west. And to the east of us is a dog kennel, and the dogs are going off at the kennel to the east of us. And we're like right in the middle, and we're filming, and we hear this bipedal thing coming. And I don't know if it was the energy of the location or what, but it was, we all felt a little weird. And I'm listening to this, and I'm telling these guys, I go, listen, guys, I think there's someone coming this way. It may be another paranormal group, coming out to investigate because it's Halloween, And so Brian says, let me listen. So he listens. And he's like, no. He goes, Bill, that's not a person. So he lets Bill listen to it. And Bill looks at me and goes, like, Al, what are you, crazy? If that's a person, he's like, 1,000 pounds. But anyway, they're coming towards us. And all we go out with is pepper spray, 10-inch survival knives, 18-inch machetes. I don't let anybody carry any firearms. I don't trust anybody with firearms. Plus, this park is a federal park. You're not allowed to carry firearms on it anyway. But anyway, we're sitting there. So I says we don't have a campfire going. All we're using is glow sticks for ambient light, and we have headlamps. So I still tell everybody, shut off the headlamps, because if there's someone coming, we don't want them to know where we're at, because we're up on this, this ridge, and we got the lake to the west of us and the swamp to the east of us, and we're sitting there, and this thing comes up to us, and I mean, whatever this is directly below us, and below the ridge, and it does 3 huge whoops. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I mean, the last one just, it vibrates up your leg, it goes through your chest, and everybody just looks at one another like, oh my God, we got a Sasquatch below us. And then Brian says, I think it did three. He's whispering because I think it did three whoops because there's three of us. And I was like, maybe, I don't know, you know? And so we're sitting there. So then it picks up two rocks and it does a rock knock. Boom, boom, boom. So I pick up a stick and I do a tree knock. Boom, boom, boom. Now all of a sudden, we got whoops coming from the west of us. And once this creature whooped three times, the coyotes and the dogs all went dead silent. Just dead. You could have heard a pin drop in those woods. And then we hear whoops from the west. We hear whoops from the south, and this thing is right below us. And so we're sitting there. We're doing so. This thing now, I don't know if it's telling the other ones that, you know, be careful. There's people in between us. You know, I don't know if they're triangulating, hunting, or what they're doing, but obviously they're all around us. So at one point, you know, I do another tree knock. It does a tree knock. It answers me back. And then we're sitting there and let me see. And we're sitting there and, oh, it decides to throw a rock at us, but not just a small rock the size of a golf ball. It picks up a rock the size of um, a grapefruit or something, you know, a pretty decent sized rock, a melon maybe, and it throws it over the trees and it comes down and it hits between me and Brian and it rolls down between us and it hits Brian's chair. And, you know, Bill is ready to go after the three ropes. He says, I think we should leave. And I was like, no, not ready to leave yet. I feel like the night is just getting started. I don't want to leave. So then the rock comes down, it all hits Brian's chair, and Brian says, you know what? Maybe it's time for us to leave. And I say, nope, I still feel like there's more to come. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. You know, I don't want to be that guy that walks away before something happens because they get scared. And I'm like, no, everybody just hang tight, you know? So we're sitting there and we're just listening. I mean, our ears are like the size of elephants. We're listening to everything around us. And at one point, we hear what sounds like a quadruped charging up the ridge line. And you hear, because it's fall, it's Halloween, you got a lot of leaflet on the ground. You hear bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. And I'm thinking, this is not a Bigfoot charging us. This is probably a mountain lion or a black bear or something, because I didn't know at that point that Bigfoot did bluff charges, And so it's pitch black. So we turn on our headlamps. Bill gets up and starts to run. And all my focus is on where the sound is coming from. It's on the other side of the wall and it's coming up the ridge. And I'm thinking a mountain lion is going to jump over this wall and is going to take my arm and I'm going to have to kill it with my survival knife. I got my knife out. Brian's got his machete out. Bill goes to run by me and I grab him. And I don't know how I did this because I wasn't watching him. I must have seen him out of my peripheral vision, but I just grabbed him by the arm and I spun him around. And I said, no, stand your ground. And we made like a triangle with me out in front. And I'm thinking for sure any second a black bear is going to come over that wall or a mountain lion is going to come over that wall. And this thing charges right up to the wall and then stops dead. Nothing comes over the wall. So we're all going to say, I take out my little Sony camera and I take a couple of pictures where I think it is. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. I look at the picture on the back of the camera. I don't see anything on it, but the screen is only like 2 inches. You know what I mean? And it's pitch black. So I say, come on, grab all your stuff. And then we hear this thing charge right up to the wall. And the wall is literally 3 feet in front of us. And then when it stops, we hear a whoop to the south of us at the other end of the lake, which is like 3 miles away. So we're like, what that, is that a different one down there? Or was the one thing that was just in front of us, went through some kind of time slip and a portal and is at the other side. So I say, grab all the cameras. We jump over the wall. We jump over the wall. We got 4 different cameras going, pointed in every direction. Bill's got a 1500 luma flashlight that lights the night up like daytime. And there's nothing in no image in any of our cameras. We're looking at all our cameras and nothing is coming. And we're like, this thing that charged up this ridge just disappeared. Where'd it go? We didn't hear it leave. We didn't hear it run back down. We didn't hear it jump off the ridge and land in the swamp. It just disappeared like in thin air. And like I said, we got 4 cameras going and we got lights going and we don't see anything anywhere. Okay. So we go back over to the other side of the wall and, Bill's like, can we leave now? And I'm like, nope, not yet. Let's just hunker down a little bit longer and see what happens. So we hunker back down and for like another half hour, 45 minutes, and the woods just goes dead. There's nothing going on. Okay. So at this time I said, all right, guys, you know what? Let's pack up all our gear and let's move to our second location. And so we pack up all our gear and we start hiking towards the northwest towards our second location, which is the meadow. Brian is streaming live on Twitter and he's filming at the same time. He's got this night vision camera that he's using to film with. And so he's filming. He goes, you know what? I'm going to leave this camera on. And because he goes, I don't want to be that guy to shut it off and then something happens. And I was like, okay, because, he's a tech guy. That's the way he thinks. I said, okay, you leave it on and you film us. I said, but, let's be careful when we're going back because this trail turns into a go trail and it's very, very sketchy. It's sketchy during the day. At night, it's even like 10 times worse. So we got our headlamps on and we're walking and I'm wearing a Moldavite stone, which is supposed to be an alien stone. It communicates with the aliens or something to that effect. It gives off a high frequency vibration, which the aliens or transmit, which the aliens receive, right? So I'm wearing this when I'm getting that communication out of the sky. Because when Brian says, maybe it's the radiation in the trees, I say, or it could be an alien craft, disguised as a cloud, and we just don't recognize it. And kind of half jokingly, but who knows? So we're walking back. We got our headlamps on and we're walking back. And as we're walking back, I see this silvery bluish light to the west of us, blinking very strangely. It's going from west to east and it's crossing the lake. And I look up at it and I say, oh, God, please don't let this be a UFO. Don't let these guys get abducted because I'm wearing this stone, right? And then it turns like it starts to go south towards the south end of the lake. And Brian notices it and goes, what's that? And as soon as he points at it and he's filming it with his camera, it stops. Now it turns almost like an orange color, amber color, or red color. It's blinking. And it starts making a beeline towards us. Like it heard Brian say, what's that? And it makes a beeline towards us. And again, this is the fall. There's no leaves on the tree. This thing is coming towards us and it gets above us. And we're hearing like this electrical hum. And if you go on the website or you'll see the video and you'll hear the electrical hum and you hear us talking. But the strange thing is we were filming that for like, a good 10 minutes, but there's only like 5 minutes of video. I don't know what happened to the other 5 minutes of video, but we're talking and all of a sudden this thing comes over us and it's above us. And I tell everybody, shut your headlamps off, don't. So we all shut our headlamps off and we're all looking at it and we're all standing there underneath this thing looking up at it and we're trying to make out what it is. You hear us discussing, is it a drone? Is it this? Is it that? But it's, it doesn't sound like anything that we know. And then all of a sudden it hits us with a floodlight and we're in this floodlight and I don't know what's going on. And we're all looking at it and, and I tell everybody, listen, let's step out of this light. We don't know what this light is doing to us, if it's downloading us or if it's, what it's doing to us. So let's get out of this light. So we all kind of back out of the light and back into the shadow. And then the floodlight blinks off and the thing takes off like a million miles an hour towards the south. Boom. In a minute, in the blink of an eye, it's gone. So we all look at each other and say, wow, that was crazy. So during the whole thing, when it hits us with the floodlight, I turn to Bill and I go, time check. I always do a time check whenever I have a UFO experience. And I say, time check. And Bill says, it's, 9 o'clock. I said, okay. We get over to the second location around 9:15, because it only takes 15 minutes to get there. That's at least that's what we're thinking, and we're sitting there and I'm telling Brian, and I don't know why I said this to him, but I said this to Brian. I said, look, if we see any balls of light, we're not going to follow them, because the Native Americans, they don't follow them. They just lead you to your demise, But our psychic says that the balls of light are fairies. She says we're going to see fairies and gnomes and Bigfoot, and we're laughing at it like, are you crazy? What are you on? And so we're sitting there, and I said, look, if we see any balls of light, let's do this. Let's hit them with our lasers and see what happens. So Brian says, okay. So we're all sitting there. I'm facing south. Brian's facing north. Bill is facing west. And we're admiring the full moon. And he's filming. Bill is filming, actually filming the meteor shower. And then I see what looks like 7-8 foot shadow figures jumping from tree to tree. So I'm taking pictures of the trees. I'm like, do you see this? And everybody's like, yeah, oh my God, what is this? And Bill is filming, and he's got a camera hooked up to a screen with a chip inside the screen. So we're filming everything. We're downloading it onto this chip, SD card. And so he's filming that. And as we're filming that, I see 2 balls of light appear across the lake where we just were, 15 minutes ago. So I said, okay, listen, fellas, this is what we're going to do. I says, Brian, you hit the ball on the right, the light on the right, and I'll hit the one on the left. You hit it with your green laser. I hit it with my red laser. And I said, Bill, when we do this, you hit the whole area with your 1500 light, Luma light, flashlight, and we'll see what comes out of there. So on 3, we go 1, 2, 3, boom. Soon as our lasers hit those balls of light, and Bill hit the whole area with his flashlight, those balls of light blinked out. Don't know where they went. Don't know where they came from. They just blinked out. Now, this particular lake is famous for UFOs siphoning water out of the lake. There are claims that there are still 50-gallon drums of nuclear waste at the bottom of the lake. There are people who camp there that claim they see balls of light go in and out of the water, out of the lake. So we hit this and we're like, wow, that was crazy, And so then Brian sees movement behind me. He says, Al, turn around. There's something running from that big tree to your right to this little tree to the left. He goes, I don't know what it is, but it looks almost like a midget, So Bill comes over with his camera, and I'm holding the actual part to watch it in the viewfinder, right? And Brian's looking at it. We're all looking, and Bill's filming over there. And I swear to you, hand to God, a little 3-foot gnome comes out from behind the tree to the right with the hat and the beard, and it runs to the tree to the left. Now, all 3 of us look at it. So we're watching this on the viewfinder, and all 3 of us look at each other like, did you just see that? And so we're still filming, and then a second one comes out, right? So now we're pretty excited because we got it on the chip. We've been filming this, and we got it on a chip, and we're like, oh, this is cool. We got evidence of like gnome-like creatures in the woods. So Brian says, let's go over there and take a look. As we're getting up to take a look, we hear what sounds like a family, a mother, a father, and two small children coming down the Appalachian Trail. And you hear like a lot of murmuring, like parents talking and kids giggling, and you hear them like kicking rocks. And we're thinking, who the hell is hiking through the woods on Halloween with their kids at night? That's insane. Now, we're sitting there with our headlamps off in the dark with these 18-inch machetes and 10-inch survival knives. So I tell the guys, I said, listen, put your headlamps on. So when these people come out into the meadow, they're not freaked out by seeing three grown men sitting in the dark with all these weapons, you know? So we put our headlamps on and we're listening and we're listening. And its sound is getting closer. The sound is getting closer. And no one ever comes out into the meadow. So Bill goes, wow, that's pretty strange, you know? And I said, Bill, grab your 1500 luma flashlight. Let's go in and see if they're okay. Maybe something happened to them, you know? So we go in and he's got his flashlight, lights up the whole woods like daytime. And we walk in a solid 100 yards and there's nobody there. Just absolutely dead silent. So we go back. Brian's still at the base camp with all the equipment. And we get back and we tell Brian what happened. And Brian says, you know, we got to call Cindy, the psychic. We got to call our psychic. She's in Arkansas. She reads everything through me. She says, I'm a conduit. So we call her. And she says, why are you guys calling me so late? And I says, what are you talking about so late? We've only been here like, you know, a half hour. You know, we went from the other. I said, it's only like 9:30. She's like, no, it's like 10:30, 11:30. She goes. I go, what do you mean it's 11:30? She goes, Al, it's 11:30. You know, you guys, you know, it's, and I was like, it can't be. So at some point, we lost 2 hours of time. Now, we don't know if that 2 hours of time happened when the UFO came or what, because we never did another time check when we got back to the second location, because we just assumed it was only a 15-minute walk. So we thought it was like a 9:15 when we got there, you know? So somehow we lost to her. So we tell Cindy what's going on, and it's, you know, pretty amazing. She said, yeah, you know, she was the one who told us we were going to see these balls of lights, and we were going to see gnomes, and we were going to have Bigfoot encounters, and we were going to have Dogman encounters, and all of this stuff, you know. And we thought she was crazy, but of course, she's always 100% right on. She's, you know, fifth generation psychic. She's Native American. I believe it's Cherokee. She's really in tune with the other side. And so we tell her about the family, and she starts laughing. She says, no, that family's not there tonight. That family is going to be there tomorrow. You guys are in a time space continuum, and that family will be there tomorrow. She goes, I don't know what you guys did. And she goes, I don't know about this location. She goes, because I've never invested in a location that had this kind of energy. And she says, this place is a natural vortex where things come in and out of. She said, I don't know if that's got to do with the uranium that's in the ground that they were mining, but the Native Americans would talk about seeing the sky people come down to the mountain, and, you know, maybe they were mining uranium back in the day. I don't know. But she said, this place is off the charts, just off the charts. And she said, you know, be very, very careful because the energy of this place could be dangerous, you know. So, okay. So we pack up the location. We say, okay, you know, we're kind of confused because we don't know how we lost 2 hours of time, and we're all trying to figure this out. And I'm taking pictures all around us, you know, like where we seen the gnomes, where we seen the shadows, where we seen the balls of light. I'm just taking random photographs. So then I said, okay, let's go to the third location, where the campsite, where the people have said the Sasquatches come off the Appalachian Trail and into the campsite. We get there, and for some reason, I wanted to be there for 12 o'clock. And according to our watch, it was 12 o'clock. So I was like, okay, this is usually the time the people talk about Sasquatches coming off the Appalachian Trail and into this site. So we're sitting there, and then for some reason, I don't know, I get this thought in my head like, oh, wait a minute. Tonight is the night we have to turn the clocks back. So it's not really 12, it's only 11. And we're burnt out. We've been in the woods for like 8 hours. Okay. And Bill goes, oh, I don't know if I can sit here for another hour, man. I'm wiped out. And Brian's like, oh yeah, let's head out of here. And I was like, okay, I'm burnt out too. We've been in these woods for 8 hours, and the energy of these woods have really done a number on us, And so the game plan was, before we went in, we would, after we left, we would rendezvous at a diner and get something to eat, get some coffee, and discuss the night. Now, the whole time we are in these woods, 3-4 miles deep into the woods, the whole woods are devoid of life. You don't hear a cricket. There are no deer running around. There are no skunks or raccoons, just devoid of life. And we can't understand how a place, this beautiful with all this wilderness, could be so devoid of life, So we're walking out, and as we're walking out, we're discussing what a crappy night it was. It's like, man, we've been here for like 8 hours, and the whole time nothing happens. And, we're discussing how nothing happened. Like, we don't even remember all the stuff we experienced the whole time we were there. And we're walking, and the closer we get to our cars, the further we get away from the lake, the more wildlife we're seeing. And now all of a sudden, there are deers, there are, you can hear the crickets chirping, and there's deer, and there's, raccoons foraging and all kinds of stuff. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So we get back to our cars, and everybody gets in each car, and instead of going to the diner, everybody goes in different directions. Bill goes home. Brian drives back down to the Bronx. I go home. And the next morning, Brian wakes up, and he's, not wearing a shirt. And his daughter says, Dad, what happened to your chest? And Brian says, what are you talking about? She goes, there's a little, looks like a little handprint on your chest. You got a black and blue, but looks like a handprint. So Brian goes, oh my God. And the whole time he's looking at himself in the mirror, he's spitting up blue phlegm. So he calls me. He says, dude, I woke up with a bruise on my chest and I'm spitting up blue phlegm. How do you feel? And I was like, it's funny you mentioned it, because I feel a little loopy. I feel off. I am definitely not myself. And I got a fat lip, like something was implanted on my lower lip. It's as hard as a rock. Now, that night, nobody fell. There were no injuries. We got in and out of there without any casualties. So, there's no reasons for him to have a bruise. There's no reason for my lip to be fat. So we called Bill up on a conference call, and we said, hey, how did your night go? And he's like, oh my God. He said, I had night terrors all night long. He had night terrors of aliens all night long. He was screaming in his sleep. He woke up sweating profusely. He's got a bruise. I think he had like a bruise under his eye, like not so much a black and blue, like if he got punched in the eye, but he's got a little bruise under his eye, and his whole body hurts, like his joints all hurt. And I'm like, man, let's call Cindy and find out what the hell happened to us. So we call Cindy on the conference call. Again, she's in Arkansas, and we tell her, all what we've experienced, all the injuries we have. And she says, look, I don't know where the hell you guys were last night. She says, but the arm that I use to talk to you guys on the phone when I hold my cell phone up, that whole forearm is red with a rash and swollen. She goes, so I don't know, but whatever happened, somehow it affected me as well. She's in Arkansas, and she got an injury over the phone, long distance. I mean, it was such an incredible night. Now we went back and we do a monthly meeting once a month where we go to the library and we put all our photographs and video on like a 60-inch television and we review everything. And we got some amazing orb photos. Unbelievably, none of the video that Bill was filming that night recorded on the SD card. The SD card was blank, and he had used that SD card for sky watching filming before. So that SD card should have had meteor showers on it from other dates. The whole card was blank. It was just erased. There was nothing on the card. And like I said, Brian, who filmed for the whole 10 minutes of the UFO episode, only got maybe 3 minutes of it. Doesn't make any sense. So we go back and we're reviewing the evidence and we're looking at all these orbs, different color orbs, blue and green and red. And some look like they have faces in it. And others look like they're, some look Native American, some look demonic. It's just crazy, this stuff. So we put all our evidence out there raw for anybody to look at. And about a month later, I get a call from a guy out in California. It was definitely, and the reason we put it out there is just, well, look, we're working people. We don't have the budgets like the TV shows, for high-tech stuff. So we work with what we have. But we know there are people out there that have great equipment that can review our stuff and find stuff that we can't even see. And he calls me up and he says, dude, you know that photograph you put up of the wall at night, that little black wall? He goes, well, you guys heard the bluff charge? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you caught a dog man in that picture. I'm like, what are you talking about? I looked at that picture a million times. I never seen anything. He says, I'm going to send it to you, cleaned up, and you caught a dog man in that picture because there's an animal with a snout like a pit bull with 2 pointy ears like a Doberman Pinscher, and it's peeking over the wall. You can see its nose. You can see the eye shine from the flash in its eyes. So I go, okay, send it to me. So he sends it to me. Now, I'm very skeptical of people. When he sends it to me, I never noticed this when I looked at it. So as soon as he sent it to me, I went back to my little camera and I looked at my camera and I plugged it into my computer. I put it on the computer screen, and sure as shit, it's there. There it is. It was a dog man that charged us. Maybe the Sasquatch was trying to warn us that we were at a dangerous location and you shouldn't be here because this is the dog man side of the woods, So I see it. So I send it to Brian. And again, he looks at it. So then the same guy contacts me a couple of days later. He goes, hey, those photographs with all those orbs that you got at the second location, the meadow? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you caught a Bigfoot in that. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I've looked at that. We've looked at that photograph 100 times on a big screen TV, but we're so captured or mesmerized by the orbs that we see that nobody is looking down on the ground. And underneath this little red skin, measly little tree of a bush or whatever you want to call it, is this giant lion head looking Sasquatch. It must have belly crawled up to us and was watching us under that tree the whole night, because we never heard it come. We never heard it leave. And again, when he sent me the cleaned up version, I looked on the camera and yeah, there it was. Just never noticed it. And I'm telling you, it's got like a lion's mane. It's humongous. But you can see it's almost got like a beard and a mustache. I mean, in the head brow, the eyebrow, the brow ridge is humongous on it, but it's got this huge. It doesn't have a conical head. It's got like a lion's head. So I send it to Brian and Bill, and everybody's freaking out because we can't believe that we missed all this evidence, And so that was the Nuclear Lake experience from 2015. It was, to put it mildly, it was a crazy night, an amazing night. And I'll tell you the truth, I went to work that following week, and I would say from Monday to Wednesday, I was loopy the whole day for 24 hours a day, 72 hours. I was loopy. I was cognizant enough to be able to do my job, but I definitely was not me. It was crazy. If you got any questions about it, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Can you describe your research group to everybody so they know what it's about?
Okay, well, I started the Bronxville Paranormal Society because I was a member of a UFO meetup group, and I was having a lot of experiences with UFOs. I think it was 2012. I was seeing UFOs every morning when I went to work and every night when I came home. And I thought I was losing my mind. I called my brother, who's a parapsychologist, and I told him, I said, Frank, I think I'm losing my mind. And he's like, no, there's a group right across the street from where you work that meets at the library. You should go talk to these guys. So I went there and I talked to, I hung out with these guys, and they're all like-minded people. And it's a UFO group, but they discuss everything from, conspiracy theories to Bigfoot and everything else. And my brother said, now that you know all these different people, you should put your own team together and start doing investigations. And I was like, because I was going out with a bunch of people from work. I worked in Bronxville, New York, and that's how the name came about. We were at an ancient stone chamber one time doing an investigation, and a family walked by, and one of the little kids said, "Hey, are you a paranormal group?" And we were like, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What's the name of your group?" And because we're all mailmen from Bronxville, I said, "The Bronxville Paranormal Society." And the name just stuck. But my brother said I should really get into it with more people who are different or have expertise in different fields. Like Brian was a phenomenal tech guy, and Bill was a phenomenal camera guy. So I made a group out of the people that I thought I would be able to work with out of that group that was, meet up. And that's how the group came about. And then when we started doing symposiums, we started getting a lot of flack from people like, what does a paranormal group know about Bigfoots? What does a Bigfoot group know about UFOs? So we branched off into the New York State UFO Project, and we branched off into the New York State Sasquatch organization. And we also went with the New York State Dogman Project as well. This way, when we go to these symposiums, we have banners that everybody's on the same page. We don't catch any grief from anybody else. You know what I mean? And so that's how we branch down into everything. But, we're just a group of guys who all have little expertise. Like Bill is a cameraman and Brian's a tech guy, and for some reason I'm an experiencer. And there's like 5 or 6 different guys on the team, and not everybody can always make it. So sometimes, you have to bring in other people to replace. Like if Bill can't make it, I bring in this guy, Bob, who's a camera guy for the local cable station here. So he knows what he's doing with cameras and stuff as well. So, we're always intermixing people because, let's face it, when you work for a living, everybody can't, no one has the same schedule, and everybody can never make an investigation. And, we've been doing this for God knows how many years now. And I don't think we've ever had one investigation where the actual whole team was on it, So, but, that's how we started as a paranormal. Yeah.
Okay. Where can everybody find your guys' evidence or your guys' findings?
Oh yeah, Brian's got us. Brian's got the Bronxville Paranormal Society. Everything is all interconnected on every social media platform you could think of. But we also have our own website, and it's called the Bronxville Paranormal Society.com, and you can find all of our evidence, our videos and stuff up there as well.
Okay, awesome. So going back to the beginning, when you were experiencing the rock throwing, did you think that was a bad thing, or like maybe they were trying to drive you out of the area?
Honestly, first of all, I never expected to have the rock throwing happen to us, as soon as we got to the lake. You know what I mean? It was daytime. It was early in the morning, maybe like 10 o'clock in the morning. We were just going there to check out, do a little recon, and So we never expected anything. And Bill was very unfamiliar with Sasquatch um, history, so he didn't even know like what the rocks were. He's like, "Dude, I think somebody's throwing rocks at us in the woods," and I started laughing. I was like, "No, that's not somebody. That's something." And I think we're in between either a mother and father or a child and a mother, and I think we should move on. I think whatever was on the east side of the road and whatever on the west side of the road, we need to give them space. And like he couldn't believe it. He was like, "Are you serious? Is that really a Bigfoot throwing rocks at us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what they do." And he's like, "We just got here. We've been here like 5 minutes." I was like, "Well, this is thousands of acres of woods. You know what I mean?" And so they're here. I know they're here. There's reports that they're here. So we just moved on, and we just moved away from that location, and we were good once we moved away.
Yeah. Can you describe the 7-foot Sasquatch that you saw?
Well, the 7-foot Sasquatch that stepped out from behind a tree,
Mm.
I wasn't actually there. That was my neighbor's friends that were
Oh,
coon
okay.
hunting.
Okay. Yeah.
But the way they described it was your typical patty looking kind of Sasquatch. You know what I mean? With the conical head, black as night. They did say it had red eyes. The eyes were glowing red. And they said, when it screamed at them, their whole body vibrated. Like the fluids in their body vibrated, and it just scared them to death. And the 22s they had weren't, going to do anything.
Yeah. So that area is different than the one that your research group went into, correct?
No, it's the same exact area. Absolutely same exact area. It's just maybe a mile and a half up the mining road. It's not in the deep woods as of yet, and because at some point the mining road ends and it turns into like a goat trail. When you get to that goat trail, which is actually right on the end of that meadow that we use as our second location, when you get there, the mining road ends and it becomes like a goat trail. I mean, really hazardous, rocky, dangerous terrain. And that's why it's really, dangerous to go at night and stuff because, man, if you don't have a good headlamp and you can't see where you're walking, you could get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Where the 7-foot Sasquatch stepped out on the two coon hunters was our last location where we were gonna do at the end of the night, which is I call the campsite because it looks like it opens up to the west side of the lake. It opens up to like almost like a little beach like area, and it's very like a grassy knoll, and people tend to use that as a campsite. But directly across from that campsite, on the other side of the mining road, is where the Appalachian Trail comes into the lake. So these
Okay.
creatures are coming in off the Appalachian Trail, and they're using that beachy area we found footprints there in the water. And we found I found all kinds of skeletal remains of beavers, of geese, of fish. And this lake has a fish they call alligator bass. It's got an alligator mouth, but it's a bass fish. I don't know if something was created from the nuclear waste that was in the lake, but we found skeletons of them, all kinds of carcasses. Now, I'm not saying that all of these carcasses are brought up onto the shore by Bigfoot, because there are coyotes, and that hunt there as well. And I'm sure there are bobcats and mountain lions. So, I mean, but it's just, it's strange that this little grassy knoll, beachy area we've found all kinds of carcasses, and we found all kinds of footprints. We found like the front end of the foot where the toes were at one time. Like the back end must have been on a rock, and the front end must have been in the water, because we found the palm of the foot at one end, and right around the corner from it, we found just the opposite, where a heel of the foot was in the sand, but the palm of the foot must have been on a rock. So we found two different things. So we've found, footprints at this location. It's definitely a squatchy location.
Yeah, for sure. Can you describe the crystal stones and the pyramid shape and the significance behind it?
Yeah, it was three um quartz crystal stones, very, raw quartz. It's not polished quartz or anything like that. It's raw quartz, the size of, I would say, again, a cantaloupe or a small melon. But they were actually, one of them, I got pictures of them. One of them actually looks like it has a face, and they were two on each side and one on top, and so it was raw quartz. One did look like it had a face on it, and I believe that one was on the top of the two other ones that weren't. That didn't have any kind of definition other than, a rocky stone.
Yeah, and you just found them like that?
Yeah, just, and like I said, we found on the way in too. Once we got off the mining road and we got onto the goat trail, which I like to call it the goat trail, we started finding those little stone cairns. You know what I mean? All over the woods, which was very, very creepy. And I did some research on them, and I found out that the Sasquatch do build these stone figurines.
Yeah. What about the Morse code that you experienced? Can you describe that? Was it like wood knocking or?
No, it was just like, as a matter of fact, Brian, we recorded it. We hooked up a digital voice recorder to the parabolic mic, and we recorded on a digital voice recorder. And Brian brought it home and ran it through some kind of software, and where it actually came out. I forgot what it said. He actually got it through this software that he has. It actually said something. There was actually a message in it. I don't remember what the message was. It was 6 years ago because Brian's got that. But when he ran it through this software, that digital, like that Morse code thing, actually said something. But I don't remember. I don't honestly. I couldn't even speculate what it said at this point. I don't remember.
Yeah. So it was like some type of electronic disturbance or just something radiating from the area that you didn't know where it was coming from, really?
Yeah, like I said, to me, first of all, we would have never heard it without the parabolic mic.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So
Yeah.
if it was coming at us without the mic, we would have caught it on the digital voice recorder that we were running that night. Because we were running two separate digital voice recorder, one that ran continuous for like 72 hours and one that was voice activated that only went off when it heard talking. Maybe we would have caught it on one of them, but I was working with the parabolic mic at the time, and I heard it through that. And to me, I mean, if you ever listen to like an old World War II movie where they're doing the Morse code, or if any of those cowboy movies where they're doing the telegraph thing, like that. That's what it sounded like, but it sounded like it was coming down out of the sky towards us. And I don't know if it was a craft up there behind the clouds sending us a message, or where this message was coming from, because, Brian is like, well, maybe there's, radio towers up here, or radar towers, or, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, we didn't see any towers in the woods. We don't know if there are any towers in the area. It's not like there's power lines that run through these woods or anything like that. But if you watch the video, you hear us like discussing all these different things that it could possibly be. But to me, it sounded like either a telegraph message or a Morse code.
Yeah. And you kind
Yeah.
of feel like when all this activity is breaking out, some type of portal broke open or
I
something.
think we opened the portal with the Tibetan singing bowl. I think once we put that frequency and that vibration out into the woods, and I mean, we had it going really, and it was just singing, and the woods, and you could feel the whole energy of the woods change. everything changed after we used that bowl. And we didn't use it just once. We used it twice, once during the day and once at night. So I don't know. Our psychic believes that there are portals and that it's a natural portal location, and that, we may have opened it up with the frequency we were using.
Yeah. And what do the Tibetan people use the singing bowl for?
Well, there's a whole bunch of chakras that go from your like head down to your feet, and each bowl is meant for a different part of the body. There's like your heart chakra and the soul chakra, and all of these different chakras. And the bowl I was using was the crown bowl, like the top of the head. For I guess that may have something to do with consciousness or something. I don't know, but that was the bowl that I just picked out when I was shopping for like sage and crystals and stones like that. I seen that bowl, and I seen it was a crown chakra, and I was like, you know what, that's got to do with consciousness. Let me buy that one, And
Yeah.
we have a lot of success with these Tibetan singing bowls. We believe we opened up a portal there at that lake that night. We believe we opened up a portal another time inside of an ancient stone chamber. And when we filmed for the Travel Channel recently, we did an episode called Alien Invasion of the Hudson Valley. I took them, Ben Hansen and Mark D'Antonio and Melissa Tittle were the stars of the show, but I took them to another location of high strangeness. And when we started using the Tibetan singing bowls, that's when we had crafts come in, and they filmed the crafts coming in. They put it in the show, and Ben Hansen was like a schoolgirl. He was so giddy, he couldn't believe, that what we actually said, we actually delivered on, So so we use them for a lot of different experiences, and every time we use them, the frequency just amps up the energy of the location. It really does.
Yeah, I agree. Seems like anything's worth a try.
Yeah, we're playing with a lot of environmental things right now. I'm going through with the Sasquatch stuff. I've kind of changed gears, and I started doing environmental testing. I have a bunch of different gadgets that read a lot of different parts of the environment, and I kind of do. I'll go to a location and I'll read everything before I get started, and then I'll do what we do, and to ramp stuff up, and I'll see how it changed, and then if the Sasquatches come in, which they usually do when we do our techniques, I'll go through all the environmental readings again, and they'll change again when the Sasquatches come in. So the energy changes at the location. You have your baseline, and then when we do it, and then when they come, and it changes 3 different times. It's a lot of environmental data, and I don't have any of that stuff together yet because I'm still playing with it. But I mean, it's crazy. It's amazing how the energy of the location changes in more ways than you'll ever expect. You would never think it would, but it does.
Yeah, I've experienced it before, and it's the best way I can describe it is like when there was like a bad storm happening, and like in the middle when it clears out, and you can feel like all that air getting sucked up into the atmosphere, and everything's all quiet. That feeling,
Yep.
like something else is coming.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I have a couple of different meters that read like 2 or 3 different kind of environment. So when I do it, I'm going through like 20 different readings at a time, and then I'm comparing the old readings that I get with the new readings that I'm getting, and then at the end of the day, I compare all 3 to see how it changed every time something else happened. It's amazing, you know. And to be honest with you, I stumbled across it by accident. I was in the middle of the woods one time at our sacred site that I call it sacred site, and I brought an EMF meter with me for I don't know, a little voice in my head said, tonight bring an EMF meter. So I said okay, and you know, I'm 4 miles deep in the woods. There are no power lines anywhere, and the EMF meter was dead all night long until the Sasquatches came down off the ridge and surrounded us. And then the EMF meter went crazy, you know? And I was like, a little light went on in my head. I said, okay, if it's affecting the EMF, what else is it affecting? And then that's when I went crazy with all the meters for all the different environmental readings. But that's another show for a different time.
Okay, so the bluff charging, do you feel like they were trying to drive you out of there?
Absolutely. The bluff
Mhm.
charge was to get us out of there.
And you think that was a dog man doing the bluff charging?
Yes, when I see the photograph of what was behind the wall looking at us, you know, checking us out, is definitely, I'll send you the photograph. It's definitely a canine snout with a big nose on it. You can see the reflection of the light in its eyes from the flash of the camera, and you can see its pointy ears, and it's just its head peeking over the walls to look at us. Maybe, um, you know, it didn't know how many people were up there at the time, you know, and it charged us to scare us out of there. But when we didn't run, I think we kind of confused it, you know. I mean, listen, I don't go out on any investigation unless I know, you know, I feel secure at the location. I'm not going out with any subconscious fear ever, you know, because that's just a beacon to have something attached itself to you. So I never go out. Our psychic reads everybody before we go out, lets us know who can go and who can't go. And so I'll, you know, it's not like I'm the bravest guy in the world. Like maybe if that thing would have stood up and screamed at us, we would have all hauled ass out of there, you know. But
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
being that, you know, we, you know, like I know Brian and Bill thought it was the Sasquatch, you know, because we heard the three whoops. But I didn't think it was because I didn't know they did bluff charges. I thought, honest to hand to God, I thought it was a mountain lion or a black bear coming up over the ridge. You know, that's what I really thought it was. That's what I thought I was going to see when it hit that wall. But when it hit that wall, what it must have done was drop down like a belly crawl because I had my headlamp on. I didn't see anything. But, you know, again, that little voice in my back of my head said, take photographs. So I took photographs and I caught it peeking up over the wall at us. I was drawn back to that location weeks later. Okay. Something just kept pulling me back, pulling me back, pulling me back. So I told Brian and Bill, I said, listen, I'm going back with you guys or without you guys, but I'm being pulled back to that location. I don't know why I'm being pulled back there, but I have to go back. So they were like, okay, listen, you're going to go back. We're all going to go back together. So we all went back one day, and it seemed like the closer I got to that ridge, I felt like I was being attacked with infrasound. I started to overheat. I started to feel really, really sick. And I was like, why would something draw me out here to show me something and then something tried to stop me? You know, I couldn't understand. I'm being pulled towards it, and yet I feel like I'm being attacked through infrasound. And you know, Bill and Brian were like, listen, now you don't look good. You're, you know, profusely sweating. Maybe we should turn around. And I was like, there's no way on God's green earth I'm turning around. We're literally here, you know, another 25 yards and we're there. So I took some water. Brian gave me an orange. I sat down for like 20 minutes, and the feeling went away, and I felt better again, like it never happened. And we went back to that location. We went up on the ridge and we looked around and we looked around and we didn't see anything. I mean, it was like we had blinders on. Nobody seen anything. We were all walking around this location and nobody is noticing anything special. And then again, I hear this little voice say, jump on this rock. There was a big rock at the mouth of the swamp. So I jump on this rock to get a little height, and I had my walking stick with me, and I pushed back the cattails that were in front of me that were, God, they had to be 15 feet tall. I pushed them back, and when I did, there was a trailway that went right into the middle of the swamp. So I said, Brian, Bill, jump up here. And they looked. So then Bill says, oh, I'm going in. I was like, you're not going. How are you going to get in? It's a swamp. So he goes to step in. And of course, he goes down. He sinks down to his knee. And we have to pull him out. And so he zooms in close. And I go, what's that thing in the middle of the swamp? It looks like shrubs growing around the tree, like vines around a tree or something. So Bill zooms in. And he says, that's not a down tree. That looks like a den. But what are you talking about? It looks like a den. So now we're looking at it. He's zooming in, and Brian's like, oh, I got to get a drone. We got to fly it in that den, you know? So we're filming this den. And then, hand to God, it was like the blinders were taken off. And then you start seeing the X's and the arches and the breaks and the bends. And we found dog man, I guess it was a dog man poop, you know what I mean? We found that, and then we found a thing that looked like a corral, like something was using it to drive like deers into it and then ambushing him. You know what I mean? It looked like in the middle of the woods. It looked like a corral, like it was opened at one end and then it went down to like a V, and it was like all broken trees snapped on top of one another where something could hide behind, and then if deers ran in there, it could just jump on them from above, you know. And then I said, you know what? Something tells me to walk down the northern end of the swamp. To start walking down the northern end of the swamp. So I start walking down the northern end of the swamp, and I see what looks like another trailway coming out of the back of the den, walking right down the center of the swamp. And I'm saying, this is what I was being drawn here to see. This is what I was being drawn here to find. You know, we were sitting up on top of that ridge right above a den. And maybe that Sasquatch was warning us that we were not in a safe location. And maybe that dog man, if it was the mother or whatever, wanted us out of here because it had pups in that den. I don't know. But after we found all that stuff and we took pictures of everything, we went back to Bill's house because Bill's got like a 60-inch television. We threw everything on the television, and we zoomed in on that den. He was able to zoom in on it, and we found what looked like a huge wolf canine head looking towards the west. Then behind that was what must have been the same creature that bluff charged us, but in this photograph it kind of looked coyote-ish, and it was looking right at us, and it was snarling like it wanted to just eat us, just kill us. It was not happy that we were there, and it was snarling. And then next to that, we didn't even notice it, but there was something behind that looked like an alien. You know what I mean? I swear to God, I don't know what you would describe it. To me, it looked like the creature from the Black Lagoon. But as we're looking at all of this stuff, Bill's mother walks into the room, right, with coffee and cake, and she turns and she looks at the TV and she goes, "What are those two little monkeys doing in the picture?" And we're like, "What little monkeys?" And right next to the thing that was snarling at us, and in front of the creature that looked like the creature from the Black, were two little Sasquatches, look like baby Sasquatches, they look like they're holding each other's hand. And we're like, what are Sasquatches doing in a dog man den? You know, it was the craziest thing. And then after that, that's when I started having my experiences at my house with the dog man. But again, that's another story for another day. But that's what I was being drawn back to. And I think the dog man was trying to stop me from getting there, but something was pulling me there to find it. I don't know what that energy was that was pulling me there to find it, but I truly believe that the dog man was trying to stop me with infrasound, you know, or maybe it was a Sasquatch that was trying to stop me because we were getting too close and it was dangerous. But like I said, we have those photographs up on the website, and you can see that thing looking at, to me, it looks like the creature that's in the middle of the den snarling at us. It's probably the same one that bluff charged us.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Before all this took place, you were seeing those lights in the sky. Do you feel like they're connected?
I think this particular place is a place of high strangeness. I think it's always been a place of high strangeness. I think the Native Americans knew that as well. Because the way the sacred site is set up. Now, I don't know if the sacred site is built on the mountain where they mine the uranium or not, because they sealed that cave or that mine, so nobody knows where it is, you know. But above the goat trail on a high plateau, something that I would have never found, but there was a fire in the woods, and I seen what looked like a cairn on top of the hill, which made me go up this giant hill, and I found this plateau. And the plateau, once you get to the top, it has giant megalithic stones, like the size of a queen-size bed, set up in a circle with hundreds of little stones on top of them. Okay. And then you have the bends and the breaks and the archways and the trees that are pulled down with other trees on top of them, holding them down like an arch. I mean, the place is amazing. Every time I go there, I have success. I find stuff, or stuff happens to me or whoever I bring up there. But I think when I went there and I FaceTimed my psychic, she said to me, she said, this site was built by white men in robes. She says, I don't know where they came from, or she said, but it was thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. So I don't know if the same people who built the ancient stone chambers built this site. I don't know if these people are connected to the people that built the site up in New Hampshire, it's American Stonehenge. I don't know, but the site itself is definitely, and the energy at the sacred site is so calm and so relaxing that, I mean, I tell people all the time, I could lay underneath that arch in a sleeping bag and go to sleep and not worry about anything bothering me, because the Sasquatches are always around that site. And I believe they live above the ridge line, down below on the other side in the valley. I think that's their home range, but I think they protect that site. I think the Native Americans used it as a burial site. The Sasquatch may use it as a burial site as well. You know, it's just one of my theories. But the energy there is just amazing. So again, I don't know if it's. Oh, I just think this place is one of those places on Earth that just is a place of high strangeness where all these different energies connect. I would go out on a limb and say I guarantee you ley lines run through that area as well. I never looked it up, but I'm sure they do.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's cool that you mentioned the Indians say that if you follow the balls of light, they'll lead you to your demise. Can
Yeah.
you touch on that a little bit more? Because I've never heard that, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, well, over the years, there's a lot of powwows up here. They have a lot of powwows, like two a year, and on all the Native Americans from this area, the Iroquois and the Mohawks and the Mohegans and people like that. I'm sure I'm forgetting another half a dozen of them that are from this area, but they have these powwows, you know, and every time I go, I always try to sit down with the elders or the shamans and pick their brains, you know, and they always tell me, you know, stay away from the balls of light because they're not good. They'll lead you deeper into the woods, and they said something to the effect like they can put you in a trance where you're so fixated on the catching them that you could walk off a cliff and not even realize it, you know. So they say, you know, when you see them, you should go the other way.
Yeah, that's interesting because the balls of light that I've seen, they were kind of like an orange color and they're floating through the woods together. I didn't follow them because I felt it was something paranormal, and I felt, I could get hurt. So now that you shared that with me, I'm kind of glad I didn't follow them.
Yeah, you know what you should do? You should get yourself a laser next time you see one. Hit it with the laser, see what happens.
Yeah, I
See
will.
if it blinks out and just disappears. You know what I mean? Like they just disappeared, like disappeared off the face of the earth, like they weren't even there. You know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was on the east side of the lake, and we had just come there. We were there for hours, and we didn't see any balls of light. You know. And now that we're on the center of the lake, the northern tip of the lake, these balls of light show up where we were just at. You know, just very strange. Yeah, very strange.
Yeah. And with the floodlight that came down on you guys, did you see a craft or anything else other than the light itself?
Well, originally we seen the ball. We seen the craft as a ball of light, like a strobe light, like a silver's blue strobe light. But then it turned to yellow, and then orange, and then red. But when it hit us with the floodlight, it you could look up into the floodlight, and it was like almost like a hazy fog. But once you got to the point where the light was coming out of, you couldn't see anything around it, almost like a halo effect.
Do you feel like the orbs were observing the nuclear activity or where the nuclear activity used to be at, according to the rumors?
um I don't know if these are the same orbs that go in and out of the water,
Mhm.
or if these are just orbs that travel through the woods. Like a lot of people have theories that when the Bigfoots are interdimensional, and when they're going into the dimension or coming out of the dimension, they come out as a ball of energy, and then they transfer into physical creature that they are when they're here. I mean, there's a lot of different theories on that. My psychic claims that the balls of light are fairies. I don't know what they are. All I know is I was warned more than one time by the Native Americans not to follow them into the woods. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure not to follow any orbs the next time.
well, I mean, I don't, I guess it also depends on the energy you get from the vibe you get from them. You know what I mean? Where we were when they appeared was so far away that no one was going to walk all the way back to where we just left. So I just figured the easiest way to see what happens is to hit them with the lasers, because the lasers would be over there in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that light affected you guys somehow.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we lost 2 hours worth of time that night, and we all ended up with injuries. And Bill had nightmares of being abducted by aliens. Um, we all agreed that we wouldn't do what do you call that? A regression. We chose not to do it, but when I became really good friends with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who's a paranormal investigator, um, we really became close. And I was telling Rosemary the story, and she says, Al, if you want, you can come to my house, and I'll do the regression for you privately, and it'll be just you and me, and we'll see what happened. She goes, you don't have to tell if it's something dark and demonic, you don't have to tell the other guys, that you ever had it. If it was a positive experience, then maybe they may want to get regressed as well. So I thought, my brother over the years has been after me forever to get regressed. Okay, I have a lot of UFO experiences and stuff, and he's been. So finally, when I became good friends with Rosemary, I finally felt that I knew somebody that I could trust, and it would just be between us. I thought mentally I was at a time in my life where I would be able to handle it if it was something dark, like if I was being experimented on or whatever. I thought, because I'm a pretty down to earth guy, and I see everything black and white and stuff like that, and So Rosemary was going to do it for me, and I was going to keep it a secret from the other guys. And then she got so busy with TV shows and everything, she didn't have time. And then after TV shows, she had book tours. And at one point, she finally called me up and she said, "Okay, look, I got this break in between the book tour and the TV. If you want to come by," because she lived in Connecticut, she didn't live far from me. She said, "If you want to come by on such and such a date, we can do it." I said, "Okay, let's do it." And then, like a week later, she passed away. So I never got it done.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she was a wonderful woman, just a great person. I mean, an amazing researcher, an author, an investigator, truly boots on the ground type of a person, not someone who just took other people's experiences or research and wrote books about it. She was actually got down and dirty and did it herself.
Yeah, she was in it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I was about 4 or 5, my grandmother lived with me at our in our apartment, and I was the only. My brother had his own room, my sister had her room, my grandmother had a room, my parents had a room, but and I had, like, they put me like in a foyer area. You know what I mean? That was like my bedroom between my parents and my grandmother. And my grandmother was from Italy, so she only spoke Italian, and she just adored me. I was the baby in the family. So when she passed away, I got her room. Okay. And so the first 2 or 3 nights and when I went to bed in her room, she would come to me and tuck me in, you know, and tell me, don't worry, it's just me. I'm just here checking in. Because she always came and tucked me in every night. That was like part of her routine at the end of the night. And she was just continuing to do. And I would tell my father. My father would look at me. My father didn't believe in anything paranormal, even though he's seen a ghost with his own 2 eyes. He didn't believe in anything paranormal. It's like, oh, you're dreaming. And in Italian, we call grandmother Nonna. And Nonna just passed away. You're thinking about her. You're in her room, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, no, she was there. She talked to me. She tucked me in. But my mom, who was would get premonitions, she was more psychic. She was the psychic person in the family, I guess you would say. I would tell her, and she believed me. She's like, I know Norna, comes to visit you. She's still here. She really loved you. And that happened for like maybe the first week or two when she passed away. And then it kind of just stopped happening. And I was like 5. So that was like my first, I guess, paranormal experience. As I got older and stuff, I got into photography. I was big into photography. And my brother lived out on Long Island, and he didn't live far from Amityville. And he said, hey, listen, you want me and my friends, because my brother was into ghost hunting. He was part of Han Holzer's, one of Han Holzer's main guys, like protege, was my brother's teacher. So my brother was his protege, and they would use like Han Holzer's psychic and investigations. And he said, "Look, I'm getting together with my team, the team that I'm part of. We're going to the Amityville Horror. The Lutz family had moved out by then, and the Mayo family had come and gone. The Lutz family had come and gone. The house was just sitting there vacant. He said, if you want to come out and be my cameraman, my photographer, I need a camera guy. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. So went out to my brother's house in Long Island. I was maybe, man, I must have been like 16 or something like that. And we were out there and met his team, and my brother's a computer guy, you know what I mean? I call him a computer nerd. And all of his teammates were like the same, like these geeks, computer. And here I am. I'm 16 years old. I'm built like a brick shit house. I'm taller than all of them. I look like a brute compared to these guys. And so we all jump in my brother's station wagon and we go out. And once you get to the Lutz family home, it's a long, snaky driveway that kind of goes through the woods to get to the house. And soon as we hit that driveway, I got a bad feeling. I was like, oh man, I just got a feeling of dread. And I said, Frank, don't do this. Don't go to this house, man. I'm feeling dread, and don't do this. And at that particular time, he didn't have a psychic with him, and I don't claim to be psychic by any stretch of the imagination, but I just got a feeling of dread, and I was like, don't do this. And he said, what do you mean don't do this? We're all here. We're all ready to go. So they drove down to the front of the house, and I was like, dude, I'm not getting out. I'm not going in that house. And he's like, what do you mean you're not going in that house? I says, I need a photographer. I said, look, here's my cameras. You could take the pictures, but I'm not going in that house. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing it. I got a bad vibe. There's some bad mojo here. And I don't know if it had to do with the land or if it actually had to do with the house or what, but he went in with his team and they investigated and they took pictures and they did that. And I waited. I waited in the car for hours, and I seen what looked like to me shadow figures running from tree to tree in the woods. I don't know what they were. All I know is I was scared to death, and every time I seen them, I got a feeling of dread. So I don't know if those were Native Americans, circling the house or the car or what. But they went in and they did their stuff and they came out and nothing happened to any of them. You know what I mean? None of them got bad feelings, like they weren't chased out or anything like that. They did what they had to do. They did their EVPs. They took their photographs. They filmed, And back then they were using the old fashioned tape recorders, the big ones. But that was like my first time going out. And I had such a bad feeling I wouldn't leave the car, and I don't think they caught anything. I don't think they caught anything on the They may have caught something on the EVPs, like growling or stuff like that. Maybe some words that they couldn't really make out, like some kind of language. But I don't remember him ever showing me any photographs of any apparitions or ghosts or anything or demons or anything like that they caught. So that was like my first time actually going ghost hunting. I hate the term ghost hunting, but let's call it ghost hunting for lack of a better definition. And I just got a bad vibe, and I wouldn't go in there. And then a couple of years later, around 18 years old, senior in high school, again, still into photography. Photography was my thing. I went to the Center of Media Arts in Manhattan to get a degree in photography. That's what I wanted to do. And I was dating this chick who had a house upstate in the Catskill Mountain Range. And if you know anything about the Catskill Mountain Range, the Native Americans in the area would not go through the mountain range at night. They would not. When they migrated down from Canada to go south, when they got to the Catskill Mountain Range, they would camp out just before they got there. And then they would make their way through the mountain range as fast as they can to get to the other side before it got dark, because they said that the mountain range was haunted and they didn't want to be caught in there at night. And they wouldn't even hunt on it, because they said if you hunt there and you kill something, that, the demons are going to come and get you for taking their food or whatever. So this girl had a house up in the Catskill Mountains. Her parents had a summer house up there, and it was on the top of a mountain peak, and you could see like 7 other mountain peaks. And it was not far from the ski resort where we used to go skiing. Me and my friends, we would all go up skiing, take a day off of school, cut school, go up there skiing and stuff. But on the weekends, when her parents weren't using the house, we would go up there and have big parties. It's in the middle of the woods, and no, we're not going to bother anybody. And we'd all go up with our girlfriends, a couple of my friends and their girlfriends and me and my girlfriend, we all go up. Well, there was an old inn or a old hotel that was in its heyday when the Catskill Mountains, like back in the 50s, when everybody used to go up there from the city for resorts and stuff, to get away from the city, camping. And they had like all these fancy hotels back in the day up there. Well, there was this one particular hotel that we used to pass all the time that was burnt down. So one day, I was going up skiing with my cousins, and my brother was actually with us. he was telling me about all the haunted locations up in the mountain. There's a haunted train track and train cars, and we got to this hotel. You have to go down into like a little gully and come up the other side to get to the front of the hotel. And he was telling me a story that back in the 50s, that there was a big fire here, and that a couple of people had died, and one of the people who had died was like a small child, like a 5-year-old girl or something like that. And he said, you come up here on the weekends with your girlfriend to go to her girlfriend. You guys should come here and investigate this place. It's a stone's throw from where my girlfriend's house was. So we said, okay. So I talked to my friends. My friends were into ghost hunting, and so one weekend we went up, and we got there. And as we pulled into the driveway, we started going down the driveway to the front of the hotel. I got a pit in my stomach that just said, don't do this. Don't do this. This is like very disrespectful. Don't do this. Not something dark or demonic, but something sad. And I just felt like we were being very disrespectful, But of course, everybody's like, come on, you're the camera guy, you got to go in. Nah, nah, nah. So we went in, me and two of my friends and my girlfriend and their girlfriends. And we walked in, and to the right, once you got into the lobby to the right, there was a staircase that went up, and then it went across to the left. But there was nothing behind the staircase. Everything else had burnt down. There wasn't much left of the hotel standing after the fire, because it was all built with wood, And so they're rummaging around and, taking them, doing EVPs, and they're going down into the basement because the basement was still accessible. And something just told me to look up and take a picture. And I don't know why. I don't know why I got that feeling, but I went and I took a picture of the staircase, and the whole staircase, and I got a picture of the landing that went across, I guess, to where the rooms were. And back then I'm using a 35 SLR camera, so there was no digital stuff going on. So I couldn't review it until I actually developed the film. So we did our investigation as much as we could, in the building that was left and on the grounds around it, because there was a lot of debris around the grounds too, and we took pictures of all that stuff. And then, that week when I went back to school and I went to my photography class, and again, I'm a big photographer. I got like photography 3 times in a row, you know what I mean? And I'm developing the film, and then, we didn't get any pictures of any orbs, so we didn't get any, like, there was no face in the mirrors and stuff like that. I got a thing about taking pictures of mirrors, you know what I mean? I really don't like doing that. It's just, to me, it's bad mojo. So if my friends want to do it, I let them take the camera and do it, but I won't do it. But anyway, after I developed everything, and I got one photograph of, it looked like a small child, a little girl in a nightgown, with little long shoulder length hair. Looks like she's kneeling down on her knees, and she's got her hands wrapped around the railing, the pegs in the railing, and she's looking down at me, and she's crying, And when I seen that picture, it just freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? Why did I do this? And I felt so guilty seeing this poor, helpless little girl crying, just imagining the fire raging around her. It just made me feel so sad. The next weekend when we went up to my girlfriend's house, I went back there and I said, listen, I'm going to go back by myself. I don't want anybody coming with me. And I went back to that hotel with that photograph and that negative. And I put it in like a little matchbox, and I dug a little hole, and I said a little prayer over it, and I hit it with some holy water and stuff, and I buried it. And I left it there on those grounds because I felt like I had captured her soul and took it home with me. And I wanted to bring her back to where she belonged. You know what I mean? I felt like that's what I had to do. So that's what I ended up doing. And everybody was freaked out because we were all in that. We were six of us in that hotel, and nobody seen anything. And then, clear as day, the picture was clear as day. It wasn't like there was smoke around her or anything like that. It was a crystal clear photograph, and it was very sad. That was very sad. That was one of my photographs of an apparition that I caught over the years. I haven't captured many, but that was one of them. But that was a very, very sad experience.
I certainly believe that the paranormal side of this world exists, and I mean, for me, that was some of the first things I experienced, and I kind of tried diving into it, and quickly got my answers. But it just seems like, kind of like the Bigfoot topic, the more you research it, the more you jump into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll be honest with you. For years, I was one of those guys that said, ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoots, they're all separate entities. You can't come. But the longer you're in this and the more research you do, you find common threads to all of them. All of them. There are common threads to all of them. And you say, wait, I was definitely wrong. Back then I was so wrong, and the longer you're in it, the more research you do. And I like to pick a lot of older researchers' brains. I got friends that are all over the country that, that are older guys. And I reach out to them and I say, hey, how about this? Or what about that? And they all tell me the same thing. They all started out the same way. No. It's the Bigfoot phenomenon. It's all by itself. And now they're in their 80s and they're all like, listen, it's all connected. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and you just seem, the longer you're in this and the more research you do, you seem to go down this road where you realize that, yes, all of this stuff is connected. It is all connected. It's just you find threads to all of them, and
it's all connected, but so disconnected at the same time.
Yes and no. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then after we graduated high school, right? I went to school down in New York in Manhattan for the Center for Media Arts for photography. And one of my friends, Hank, he was like my best friend. He was one of the guys that used to go out ghost hunting with me, him and Everett. And Hank went to a school in Connecticut for auto mechanics, because he was a car guy. He always had Barracudas and stuff like that. He was a car guy, so he was going to school for car stuff, learning how to fix everything and do everything you could possibly do to a car. And he was in this way up in Connecticut. I have no idea what it was, but we used to go up and hang out with him on the weekends. It was a long ride. So his roommate came from northern Connecticut, northwest Connecticut. And, he heard us, hanging out, talking one night about all the ghost stuff we used to do. And he's like, dude, you got to go to blank and blank estates. And we're like, well, where's this place? These estates. And he's like, yeah. And he tells us a story about this rich family that lived in his town, basically, owned the town, and they had this giant estate on this beautiful lake. And, the family was cursed, and one by one, everybody died off. And, it's a creepy little town, and nobody goes there because the place is haunted. And he's telling us all this stuff. We're like, okay, of course, we can't get there fast enough, So he says, okay, over the next holiday, I think it was Thanksgiving or something like that. He says, I'm going home. I'll give you guys a call. You guys come on up, and I'll meet you in town at the diner, and I'll bring you to the road that leads you to the estate. Because he said, like, the driveway is like a mile long, if you can't see this estate from the road. It's surrounded by pine trees, it's in the middle of the woods. He says, but I'm not going there. And it was like, oh, what do you mean you're not going? He said, I'll bring you to the road, but I'm not going there because that place is crazy. I'm not going there. So, okay. So we go up to Connecticut one Saturday, me, Everett, and Hank. We meet this guy at the diner. And town was a creepy little town, man. It was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, just nowhere, and the people were weird. Like they knew that you weren't from this. Like they knew everybody in that town, and if you were a stranger in that town, everybody looked at you sideways, cockeyed. I remember we were in a diner having breakfast, and the sheriff come up to us and was, "What are you boys doing here?" And I'm like, "Excuse me, what do you mean? What are we doing here? We're having breakfast." He's like, "No, no, what are you doing in our town? You're not from around here. I see you got New York plates on your car." And I'm like, "Well, we're meeting so and so. He lives in this town." And we explained to him that Hank and this kid went to school together, and he invited us up for the weekend. It's like, then the kid came in, eventually showed up, and talked to the sheriff. And it's like, okay, as long as you're just passing through and somebody in the town. Like, it's like he didn't want us there. You know what I mean? It was just creepy town. So this kid drives us up. We go out into the middle of the woods. We find this road. He says, "Okay, go down this road, and you'll get to the estates. And good luck." He goes, "No one's ever made it through the night. And we're all laughing. Yeah, okay. And we think he's just trying to build it up to scare the hell out of us. And but we didn't scare very easily. So when we get there, again, I get in front of this place, and this mansion is, whoever built it, I mean, spent millions of dollars back in the 50s to build it, because it was just unbelievable. It was mind-boggling how something this beautiful could just stay abandoned and no one would buy it. And it was just, I just couldn't imagine that that there was no rich person willing, you could probably get it for pennies on the dollar. You know what I mean? And but it was just abandoned for years. So we get there and we pull up, and again, I'm starting to get this bad feeling about this place. I'm like, dudes, I don't know, man. I know that dude was talking a lot of stuff, but I'm getting a bad vibe about this. And they're like, "Oh, don't start with your bad vibes." I'm like, "Listen, I don't know how long I don't know if I could go in this place. I'm getting a really bad vibe. I'm getting a dark vibe about this place, and I don't know if I can do this." And they're like, "Oh, no, no, you're coming in." So they drag me into the foyer, and it's like all marble with this huge marble staircase that goes up and swings around and goes to the second floor. And I mean, yeah, and I'm thinking, how come no one has robbed this place? You know what I mean? There's stuff in this place that is worth a fortune. The marble alone is worth a fortune, never mind all the copper and everything. That's what's going through my head, right? And taking pictures, and the deeper I get into this house, the more negativity I feel. And Everett goes downstairs and he starts screaming, "Yo, you got to see this room down here. Oh my God, it's crazy. And we go downstairs, and it opens up, and it looks, I don't know if they called it a game room, like where they had billiards and stuff like that, but it kind of looked to me like a ceremony room. Like there was an altar at the end of the room, and it was just creepy as hell. It had a dark vibe to it, and I was like, "Look, I'm out of here. I'm done with this place." I gave Hank a camera, because I always had a couple of cameras, like 2 or 3 cameras. I gave Everett a camera. I said, "I'm gonna go do the grounds. You guys can deal with this place. I'm not dealing with this place, man. I don't like the vibe. And so I go outside, and I go to the backyard, and there's this giant Olympic-sized swimming pool. I'm taking pictures. They got a boathouse on the lake. I'm taking pictures of the boathouse. I'm taking pictures of the lake. There's a beach there. And I guess in my in my photos, I took photos of the house, from the outside. I walked around the whole house, and I took photographs of the house from every angle. And it started getting darker, and the woods just got like a dark vibe to it, man. It was just not a good place. As a matter of fact, I remember telling Hank, "Point your car out Don't leave it pointed in case we got to get out of here fast. You know what I mean? I don't want to waste time turning around, because that was the kind of vibe I got. And it got dark. And then when it got dark, I went into the car and I said, you know what? I'm not going in that house. But I had the windows down because it was the sun. Oh, no, it was the fall. It was around November. I had the windows down because it was a warm night. And I was sitting in the car. And I can see them taking pictures throughout the house, up on the top floor, down on the bottom floor. I can see the flash going off through the windows and stuff. And then I start hearing all kinds of screaming going on and all kinds of craziness happening. And Everett comes flying out of the door. And then Hank comes flying out behind him a few minutes later. And it's like 1:00 at night at this point. And they're like, let's go. I'm like, what happened? He said, Everett said something grabbed him down in that billiard room and tried to drag him towards the altar. He said he was being dragged by an invisible force. And he said it felt like it wasn't hands, but it was like claws or something. He said, and it ripped his shirt, and he had like bruises and faint scratches on his chest. And he got out of there. And then Hank said he was on the second floor, and as he was coming back down the marble steps, something literally threw him down the steps head first, and he came down the steps. Could have died, could have cracked his head open and died. So they're like, let's get the hell out of this place. And we left there 100 miles an hour. We never looked back, and we got back on the thruway, and we headed back to New York. We're like, the hell with Connecticut, man. The hell with this place. And, and then we're all laughing. I said, I told you I had a bad vibe about that place, man. I'm telling you, there's something evil there. These people are talking about the family that built it was cursed. Maybe they made a deal with the devil. I don't know. But, there was an altar downstairs, and it was just dark. And when I went to school, back to photography school that following Monday, I developed the film. And in one of the photographs, up on the second or third floor, there was a shadow figure that looked like a woman to me, in black, looking out the window, looking at me, taking the pictures, And, again, I got a bad vibe with that photograph, and I didn't want to keep it, I didn't want it, and nobody wanted it. And I was like, yeah, no, because I felt like there was darkness attached to it. So where we lived, down in Yonkers, there's a park in the Bronx called Van Cortlandt Park. It's 1,150 acres. And in the middle of it, the Van Cortlandt family has their plots. So I went down to the Van Cortlandt cemetery, to their cemetery, and I dug a little hole because I figured that was holy ground, And I dug a little hole, and I put that photograph in that negative, and I burnt it, and I said a prayer over it. And then I covered it up, and I left, and I never went back. And I was like, I didn't want to own that photograph. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I felt like if I would have kept that photograph, whatever bad luck that family had would have came on to me. And again, there was nobody in that house when we were there. You know what I mean? We walked through it, and there was nobody in there, but there was definitely a figure up on the second or third floor, looking down at me, taking photographs of the property. I don't know who that was or what that was, but I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And that's a couple of my ghost stories, just to throw in there to change it up.
Yeah, it'll make a great Halloween special.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. Like I said, I've done so many paranormal investigations, and recently I just did something with Alexandra Holzer from the Holzer Files, and I got an EVP, saying get out or something to that effect. And before that investigation, I did it that same location with other teams, and I got I don't know if you're familiar with the SLS cameras that map out stick figures and stuff like that. But I got stick figures on stage. There's a stage at this place. It's a music hall. And I got stick figures on stage next to the paranormal investigators. And it looks like it's playing a guitar, So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
crazy
strange.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you have some type of connection with the paranormal or spiritual world, and
Yeah.
keep
No.
an open eye for the future because more can come.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've recently had an experience where I call it an awakening because I'm not a big what do you call that? Higher consciousness kind of person, you know what I mean? A metaphysical person. I call it an awakening, but they call it an ascension. And so, you know, I was told, through this experience I don't want to get into because it's another long story, but I was told by other people who are psychics, are that I had this awakening, and now when I go out to locations, I just can't do what I used to do to protect myself, whether it be sage or stones or stuff like that. I have to ground myself first and really, really protect myself because I went out to a location recently with another team. They invited me out to this. It was a restaurant, and was from the 1700s or something like that. And I have never done a restaurant investigation before. And they invited me out, and I went out, and I met everybody. And they have a psychic that they use. That's not actually part of their team, but they invite out. And this woman comes. She walks in the door, and she comes over to me. And she goes, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" And I was like, I shaved my head, I used to have hair. Now I'm bald. And she's like, I'm not talking about your bald head. She said, your aura is so bright that you had an ascension, right? She said, you had an ascension. And I was like, yeah. And I told her the whole story. She's like, oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. Bada beep, bada boop. I said, okay. And then we started doing the investigation, and she went upstairs to a different location. And I was downstairs in the basement, and I didn't feel good anymore. I got the cold sweats. I got sick. I didn't feel well. I went to the bar. I had a couple of glasses of water, and I was just sitting at the bar, sweating profusely. And they were doing like 45 minutes of each individual floor. And then she came down after her group was done upstairs, because we were switching floors. We were going to go upstairs. And she came down, and she looked at me. She's like, oh my God, what happened? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, Al, what happened to you? I said, I don't know. What happened? She goes, your aura is jet black now. She goes, something attached itself to you. She goes, did you protect yourself before you came? I go, like, yeah. I goes, she goes, oh, that's not good enough anymore. She goes, now you're wide open. That's not good enough. So then I always carry salt on me because it's a purification thing. And she said, take the salt out of your pocket, put it in your shoes. This way it goes through your feet. And then she had some stuff with her in her bags. She did this whole thing on me to get rid of this attachment. And she said, it's not that it's anything dark. It was just attracted to your energy, and it was feeding off you. It was like an energy vampire. She goes, you'll probably feel loopy for a couple of days. But it was weird. When she was doing her ceremony to get it off me, I felt like, and I swear to God, hand to God, I felt like something popped out of the top of my head. You know what I mean? Like when you pop a top, that's what I
Mm.
felt like happened to my head. And she said, okay, it's gone now because your aura's back to, being really bright again. And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go upstairs to do the second half of this. I'm just going to leave. I'm done with these, restaurant investigations. And I went home, and I was loopy for like 3 days. But apparently, you know, what I used to do, I was the type of guy that went above and beyond the call of duty. I said a prayer in Latin. I used holy water. I saged. I salted. I had stones on me, because I never wanted to bring anything home to my family. And even with all of that, it wasn't enough. So it's
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it. Sounds like you've had a lot of activity.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on forever. I got a ton of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have to reconnect sometime. And
Absolutely.
I definitely appreciate you being back on the show, Al, and telling more of your encounters and experiences.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on. I mean, I'm greatly appreciated. Believe me.
Yeah, it's no problem. And
Yeah,
if you ever,
I'm not like one of those guys who reaches out to people. You know what I mean? I'd rather have someone reach out to me, like if they hear my story or something, and they reach out to me. It's very, very rare, unless I hear somebody who I think is really, really good or really amazing. Because not all guests are equal, and not all hosts are equal. You know what I mean? So if I hear a really good host, and I was like, okay, I want to do an interview with that guy. You know what I mean? So it's far and few between when I reach out to people. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's not a problem. And yeah, we'll have to do the Dogman part on a third video. And
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Al, thank you for being a guest on the show, and you did an excellent job, man, as always. And I think a lot of people can really relate to your encounter stories just because a lot of people have a lot more happen than just Bigfoot or some type of cryptid encounter. Usually it's the paranormal, alien phenomenon / spiritual side tied into it all. So it does make me think that a lot of this is connected some way or another, and I think a lot of people do too. We hear about these experiments that were done back in the ancient day with man and beast, and we're hearing the same types of stories today with secret governments and underground bases being tied into aliens and paranormal activity. What do you guys think about this? Do you think the Nephilim are coming back, or do you think this is something entirely different? I think a lot of people have a gut feeling on what it is, and I think you should always trust your gut. Alright, that's all I have for today, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And if you have a Bigfoot or cryptid encounter that you would like to share, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Later, guys.